Hello and welcome to TVP World News. I'm your host, Diana Skaya. The European Union wants a constructive dialogue with the United States, but is ready to respond firmly if it is unfairly targeted by the new Trump administration, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said on Monday, following an informal meeting of EU leaders in Belgium. Now, her remarks were echoed by European Council President Antonio Costa, who reaffirmed the EU's commitment to defending its core values and the territorial integrity of Denmark.
The European Union is prepared for a robust but constructive dialogue with the United States. But we also recognize potential challenges in the relationship with the United States, and we are ready for that. When targeted, unfairly or arbitrarily, the European Union will respond firmly. This weekend, we witnessed how steep tariffs were imposed on Canada and Mexico. Those tariffs raise business costs, they harm workers and consumers, they create unnecessary economic disruption and drive inflation. We do not see much good coming out of this.
So if the territorial integrity of a member state of the European Union is questioned, and preserving the territorial integrity of the Kingdom of Denmark, its sovereignty and the inviolability of its borders is essential for all member states. And the European Union fully supports the Kingdom of Denmark.
The European Union's trade ministers are convening in Warsaw for a final day of discussions on aligning trade and industrial policies. Now, the meeting will focus on evaluating the tools currently supporting the EU's global competitiveness and strengthening its industrial ecosystem. Now, the ministers will explore strategies to enhance the resilience of the single European market and develop a unified approach to engaging with external partners, including the United States. A key component of the summit will be a working session for EU heads of delegations centered on the future of the transatlantic partnership. This informal gathering is part of Poland's presidency of the Council of the European Union for 2025. At Monday's informal meeting of EU leaders in Brussels, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk said the European Union is close to an agreement on common defense plans. Tusk added that while officials have not yet reached a deal, they all agree that the EU's airspace and waters must be considered a common responsibility.
There is a lot we agree on in terms of defence capabilities, manufacturing capacity. And that as a common problem, it's an issue that needs shared funding. These joint missions will include securing our territorial waters and seas, not only in the Baltic, which has now become standard procedure, but also in the North Sea. We touched on a range of topics, and everyone's debating how to finance these tasks. Not everything is final. However, the issues we disagree upon are vastly outnumbered by the ones we agree on.
We disagree with the portrayal of Ukrainian soldiers as a potential threat to European security, Ukrainian Foreign Ministry spokesman Georgi Tichy said on Monday. Now, the statement came in response to an interview with Polish President Andrzej Duda, published in the Financial Times, in which he warned that the end of the war in Ukraine could lead to, quote, an explosion of international organized crime akin to the situation observed following the collapse of the Soviet Union. Now, in the statement, Tichy also added that Ukrainian soldiers and veterans are a, quote, key to a free and stable European future. South Korean intelligence released a statement on Tuesday claiming that North Korean troops were no longer present on the battlefield in Russia's Kursk region as of mid-January. Now, the statement comes after Ukrainian military authorities delivered similar reports in the recent weeks. South Korean intelligence believes that one reason for the withdrawal of DPRK troops might be the high losses suffered by Pyongyang's forces. Seoul has also provided Kyiv with language interpreters to help the Ukrainian military communicate with captured North Korean soldiers. Donald Trump suggested the United States should receive compensation for the military assistance donated to Ukraine. Now, according to the president, rare minerals under Ukrainian soil could make up for the close to $300 billion sent to Ukraine.
In Ukraine, they have very valuable rare earth. We want what we put up to go in terms of a guarantee. We want a guarantee. We're handing them money hand over fist. We're giving them equipment. European is not keeping up with us. They should equalize. And look, we have an ocean in between. They don't. It's more important for them than it is for us. But they're way below us in terms of money. And they should be paying at least equal. They should really be paying much more than us. But let's say equal to us. And they're billions and billions of dollars below. So we're looking to do a deal with Ukraine where they're going to secure what we're giving them with their rare earth and other things.
Anti-government protests in Serbia continue. Now, in the latest development, the Serbian Bar Association has voted to suspend work for 30 days in solidarity with student protesters. Now, to voice their concern over the independence of the country's legal system and threats to the rule of law, some 12,000 lawyers from the Serbian Bar Association have announced a strike. This comes in support of the student movement asking for accountability over the Novi Sad train station disaster that killed 15 people last November. The lawyers added some demands to the students' own, including calls for resignation of the Minister of Justice, the Minister of Internal Affairs, and the head of the High Prosecution Council. Critics claim the disaster was caused by poor renovation work under a deal with a Chinese state company struck due to corruption in the Serbian government and the administration's disregard for the law on public procurement with foreign companies. We're opposed to the Migration Pact. We will not accept migrants. There will be no relocation, said Polish Minister of Internal Affairs and Administration Tomasz Siemoniak on Tuesday. He also dismissed reports suggesting a decision to fast-track the pact's implementation. In a radio interview, Siemoniak addressed claims that the EU's informal meeting of interior ministers last week has led to an accelerated implementation of the Migration Pact. He clarified that these reports were false and that no decisions of that nature are made during informal meetings. The minister reaffirmed Poland's clear opposition to the Migration Pact, noting that Prime Minister Donald Tusk had publicly addressed this issue on multiple occasions. Canada may choose to redirect trade efforts from the United States towards the European Union, according to the Vice President of the European Commission, Stéphane Séjourné. Now, I sat down with Séjourné on World Talks, and in his view, raw materials, gas, and fuels could be the subject of new discussions.
We are also going to start a new discussion with Canada to coordinate our two markets, the European market of 450 million consumers and the Canadian market, which produces a number of goods that we Europeans consume. I'm thinking in particular of raw materials, fuels and gas, which could possibly be the subject of new forms of discussion if the Americans ever shut down. So we have to be very careful how they construct their industrial and commercial policy towards the United States, because there's a risk that the rest of the world will continue to trade and continue to exchange, and that the Americans will close themselves off. And I believe they are allies. We need to be able to have this discussion with them in the interests of Europeans. But we're building, just in case, a trade agreement with those who see the American market closing.
Des accords commerciaux avec ceux qui voient le marché américain se fermer.
U.S. President Donald Trump has decided to delay the implementation of tariffs on imports from Mexico and Canada. Now, this decision follows 2 phone calls held with leaders from both countries on the previous evening. The new tariffs will be postponed for 30 days. Now, Trump has suspended the planned 25% flat tariffs for the coming month. A similar conversation took place between Trump and the president of Mexico. Now, during the call, the 2 leaders agreed to hold talks on trade and security, with Mexico pledging to send an additional 10,000 National Guard troops to the U.S. border. China is set to impose retaliatory tariffs against the United States. Now, the measures will hit U.S. imports of large engine cars, trucks, LNG, crude oil, and agricultural machinery. Now, the tariffs include a 15% tax on coal and liquefied natural gas imports from the U.S. Crude oil, agricultural machinery, pickup trucks, and large engine cars will face a 10% tariff. The move comes after a deadline set by Donald Trump passed overnight, and new 10% tariffs on Chinese imports came into effect. The move escalates tensions between the two largest economies in the world. And to avoid such issues, authorities in Beijing called for talks to negotiate a deal, but to no avail. China's President Xi Jinping is expected to speak with his American counterpart to resolve the matter by the end of this week. In the early hours of Tuesday, hundreds of Santorini residents were seen boarding a ferry to Athens as tremors have continued to shake the iconic Greek island since last Friday. Reportedly, experts estimate the intense seismic activity to continue for weeks.
Everything is closed. No one works now. The whole island has emptied.
I am leaving because of the situation. I will be back when this whole thing is over. We believe we will be back.
I work on the island. I have been a resident for years, but today nobody was expecting this to happen. What is happening right now on the island is incredible.
No one could sleep last night, not my wife, my son only a bit. There was a lot of noise. It was surely a 4.9 quake, and in the house it was really loud. We went running outside. That is why we cannot stay here any longer.
And that's all for this edition of TVP World News. I'm Diana Skaya. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more news and features here on TVP World.